hope everyone is doing good today, and don't forget the method mas hugas iwas to be free from the virus and take care always. So today we will be discussing about the evolution of the Philippine Constitution. But for now, let's understand the meaning of a constitution. So what is a constitution?
A constitution is a set of rules that guides how a country, a state, or other political organization works. It is also known as the supreme law of the land, means that it is the highest law in the country. Here is a fun fact. Did you know that every 2nd of February is our Constitution Day? Every change in the Constitution, the President will release a proclamation to commemorate the date when the new charter will take effect. This day will be called Constitution Day, and the latest Constitution of the Philippines was ratified on February 2, 1987. This is the reason why we celebrate our Constitution Day every 2nd of February. So here's the importance of a constitution. First, it maintains law and order. Second, it imposes rules and regulations. Third, it protects individual freedom and rights. And lastly, it limits the power of the government. So let's move on the evolution of the Philippine Constitution. And for now, let's travel back in time and get to know each constitution. First is the Malolos Constitution. In our Philippine history, we've already discussed that the Philippines was under the Spanish rule for 333 years. Most Filipinos thought it was a hopeless case until the Spanish-Filipino agreement came, called the Pact of Biak na Bato. The Spanish government agreed to grant self-rule to the Philippines in 3 years if Aguinaldo would go to exile and surrender his arms. Aguinaldo agreed to this idea and he went to Hong Kong. However, there is a tiny problem with this agreement. The Filipinos and the Spaniards did not trust each other. The Spaniards did not pay the agreed amount. Likewise, the Filipinos did not surrender their arms. As a result, the agreement was a complete failure. This force again ordered Aguinaldo to go back to the Philippines and declared the Philippine independence from Spain in June 12, 1898 at Kawit, Cavite. The Filipinos were very happy with the idea of being independent until United States made a secret agreement called the Treaty of Paris. The U.S. wanted the Philippines as a colony, so Spain sold the Philippines to the United States. The Filipinos were not happy with the idea of being colonized. This forced Aguinaldo to issue a decree forming a Malolos Congress, which was a committee who assigned to make the constitution for the first Philippine Republic. 3 days after the first Philippine Republic was established, the 1899 Constitution was also called the Malolos Constitution, or the first constitution for the first Philippine Republic and the first Republican Constitution in Asia.
And now, let's go to the salient features of the Malolos Constitution. First, the Malolos Constitution is a popular representative government with 3 distinct branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. The legislative branch is authorized to create laws, alter and repeal them to the power vested in the Philippine Congress. On the other hand, the executive branch carries out laws. It is composed of the President and the Vice President, which are elected through direct popular vote and serve a term of 6 years. And the last branch is the judicial branch. The judicial branch evaluates laws. It holds power to settle controversies involving rights that are legally demandable and enforceable. The second feature of the Malolos Constitution is that it has a unicameral legislator. When we speak of unicameral, it means it has only one legislator, and this legislator is called the Assembly. The Assembly have full control of the executive power. The President is elected by the Assembly. Third, there was already a separation of the church and the state. Fourth feature is that we already had a Bill of Rights, and lastly, we already already had compulsory and free basic education. You know what, guys? After reading the Malolos Constitution, I realized that some things are temporary. People, feelings, and many other things. Because you know what, guys? This Malolos Constitution was not successfully implemented. It didn't last long. Why? It is because of the eruption of the Philippine-US War, in which in the end we lost the battle, and this paved way for American colonization in the Philippines. You know what? It's sad to think that first we are being colonized by the Spaniards, and for the second time around we are again colonized by other country, which is the United States.
So the Malolos Constitution was in effect for a short period of time because the United States troops or the Americans soon installed a colonial government which they take or remained effective until the establishment of the 1935 Constitution or the Commonwealth. So the Tidings-McDuffie Act served as the basis of our independence. It is considered a transitional government before granting our independence. It is also called as the Philippine Independence Act. It is a statute that provided us, the Philippines, our independence every July 4th of every year. It was signed on the date July 4th, 1946 with Senator Elpidio Carino and Manuel Quezon were there when Franklin D. Roosevelt signed the act. So the members of the Constitution or the framers of the Commonwealth Constitution were not completely free. They were not given the opportunity or the freedom to choose any type of government simply because they badly need or they really need the approval of the Americans or the president, which is that at the time is Franklin D. Roosevelt. They were familiar, so the framers of the constitutions were very familiar with the United States Constitution. So they remodeled the 1935 Constitution, highly influenced by the United States Constitution. So the 1935 Constitution or the Commonwealth were highly criticized for being a pro-American, giving Americans the right amount, they have the rights or they have the equal rights with the Filipino citizens, which caused to exploitation of natural resources.
Noong 1940, may binago sa Saligang Batas 1935 ang Asambleyang Pambansa ng Pilipinas. Binago nito ang legislatura mula Asambleyang Unicameral patungong Kongresong Kameral. Pag sinabing bicameral, may dalawa itong mambabatas, ang Senate at ang House of Representatives. Noong ikalawang digmaang pandaigdig, pinawalang bisa ng pamahalaang hawak ng mga Hapones ang Saligang Batas 1935 at itinalaga ang Komiteng Paghahanda para sa Kalayaan ng Pilipinas upang gumawa ng kapalit nito.
And the next constitution in the Philippine history is the 1943 Constitution or the Constitution of Japanese-sponsored Second Republic of the Philippines. The Second Philippine Republic was established during the Japanese occupation of the Philippines. At the outset of the occupation, the Japanese government established military administration over the Philippines, as well as Philippine Executive Commission composed of several pre-war Filipino political leaders. The Kalibapi or the Kapisanan ng Paglilingkod sa Bagong Pilipinas was also organized, designed to be the sole and exclusive political organization in the Philippines. On June 16, 1943, Premier Hideki Tojo promised independence to the Philippines. The Kalibapi would then form the Preparatory Committee on Philippine Independence or PCPI, which was tasked in drafting a new constitution. The new constitution was approved by the Preparatory Committee on Philippine Independence on September 4, 1943, and ratified by the Kalibapi on September 7, 1943. The Kalibapi would then proceeded to elect part of the new National Assembly, which also included appointed members. In turn, the National Assembly elected its Speaker and then elected Jose P. Laurel as President. On October 14, 1943, in ceremonies in front of the Legislative Building in Manila, the new republic was inaugurated, and Jose P. Laurel, the chairman of Preparatory Committee, assumed office as President.
Here are the salient features of 1943 Constitution. First, it provides strong executive power. A legislator is Unicameral National Assembly and only anti-US can run for election. The content of 1943 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines composed of 12 articles and preambles that create republican state with powerful executive branch, subordinate legislative, and judicial branches. It enumerates the duties and the rights of the citizen that require the government to develop Tagalog as the national language, and stipulate that 1 year after the termination of Greater East Asia War or the World War II, a new constitution shall be formulated and adopted to replace this constitution.
The next constitution is the 1973 Constitution. Paano nga ba nagsimula o nabuo ang 1973 Constitution? In 1965, Ferdinand Marcos was elected as the President of the Philippines and was re-elected in the year 1969. In that time, he has a plan to draft or change the Constitution to stay and maintain his power and position. So in 1971, Ferdinand Marcos began to call for a constitutional convention wherein there were delegates who will draft or revise the Constitution. Until such time, Marcos cited a growing communist insurgency in the country. That's why he declared martial law on September 23, 1972. But according to many, he did this to influence the ongoing constitutional convention and allowed him to have the absolute rule of the country by his wants and desires. In January 10 to 15, 1973, Marcos ordered a viva voce plebiscite wherein they arranged citizens' assemblies and the voting age was reduced to 15 to ratify the Constitution. Reports indicated that the mayors and governors were given quotas for the yes votes for the Constitution and the no votes are not recorded. And the results were 90% of the citizens have voted for the Constitution, even though there were communities who did not participate in the Citizens' Assembly. Marcos also used the stick and carrot method in order to manipulate the Supreme Court, and he was able to force the Supreme Court to uphold martial law and the Constitution. In January 17, 1973, Ferdinand Marcos issued a proclamation announcing that the proposed Constitution has been ratified. That's why the 1973 Constitution is considered to be the most controversial constitution because of its ratification.
So these are the important features of 1973 Constitution. First is the content of Constitution. The 1973 Constitution is composed of preamble and 17 articles that provides for a shift from presidential to parliamentary system of government. Second is establish a prime minister and a president. For the first time in Philippine history, parliamentary government established a president and a prime minister, both elected by the National Assembly. And the last is legislative power. A legislative power is vested in a Congress which is divided into two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives. So that is the important features of 1973 Constitution. Marcos thought that everything is in place until Ninoy Aquino came back to Philippines, and Marcos forced to hold the snap election. And because the result is controversial, Filipino people make a historic uprising known as EDSA until Corazon Aquino became the president and a acknowledge the 1973 Constitution and replace it to 1986.
Corazon Aquino began her term by repealing many of the Marcos era regulations that had repressed the people for so long. In April 1986, she created through Proclamation No. 9 the 1986 Constitutional Commission, which are responsible for drafting a replacement of the 1973 Constitution. This new constitution was drafted for 133 days by the appointed Constitutional Commission of 48 members and ratified by the people in a plebiscite, held in February 2, 1987. It has adopted provisions of the 1973 Constitution, provided that it has not contrary the proclamation, such as the separations of power and the Bill of Rights. It also provided a power to the President. The 1987 Constitution established a representative democracy with power divided into three separate and independent branches of the government, which is the legislative, executive, and the judiciary. There are also three independent commissions, which is the Commission on Audit, Commission on Election, and the Civil Service Commission. Integrated into the Constitution was the full Bill of Rights, guaranteed with the fundamental of civil and political rights. This constitution seemed ideal to many Filipinos, emerging from 20 years of political repression and oppression.
So, hello mga kasoksay, Patrick here, giving my insights about the 1987 Constitution. So, here we go. The 1987 Constitution is the DNA of every Filipino. It is what makes us unique. It is what sets us apart from the Americans, from the Spaniards, from everyone in this world. That document is the base of our foundation as Filipino citizens. Why? Because it contains who we are, what we are, our history, and it also includes the things that we aspire to become, the things that we strive to achieve, and for the next generations to fulfill. That Constitution is one of the basic needs in order for us to live the life that we have today and for our country to be competitive in the global arena. It is also vital for us to ensure the future of the forthcoming generations. As time passed by, we have managed to evolve. Our DNA has evolved. And these evolutions, these changes are in the forms of amendments, in the form of revisions that we have done and we still continue to do in order for us to create a better environment for every Filipino in our country. A wise man once said, the 1987 Constitution is not the perfect Constitution, but it is the best for our country, the Philippines. Thank you.